also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You are watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and on the show today, as tensions escalate in West Asia, with US overtly joining the conflict, now US President Donald Trump has hinted at a need for regime change in Iran. While saying that regime change is not the politically correct term, Trump has accused the current establishment of not making Iran great again. But we're going to get you all the details on that on the show today. Stay tuned.
Also on the show, plumes of smoke were seen over Iran's northwestern city of Tabriz. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have been conducting fresh strikes on Parchin, which houses Iranian military complex. Now, a lot hinges on how Iran responds or chooses to respond to continue the offensive by Israel and the U.S. We're going to get to all the latest on that. But first, the headlines. U.S. State Department issues worldwide caution for Americans, saying the conflict between Israel and Iran could put those traveling or living abroad at an increased security risk.
A New York Times report quoting a U.S. official says that American military and intelligence officials have detected signs of possible retaliation. Report says Iran-backed troops are preparing to attack United States bases in Iraq and possibly Syria.
U.S. President Donald Trump has hinted at a need for regime change in Iran. While saying that regime change is not a politically correct term, Trump accused the current establishment of not making Iran great again.
B-2 stealth bombers returned to American soil after strikes on Iran's key nuclear facilities as part of Operation Midnight Hammer. The aircrafts landed near Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri.
A new video shows blasts in Isfahan, one of the 3 sites hit by U.S. strikes. Sound of explosion can be heard with smoke rising, but the exact time of the video could not be independently ascertained.
U.S. flag projected on the walls of the old city of Jerusalem the night after American strikes on Iranian nuclear sites.
Iran's permanent envoy at the UNSC slams Israel and U.S. for politically motivated attacks on Iran, says the non-proliferation treaty used as a pretext for unlawful action on the country.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is in Moscow to meet Putin and other Russian officials. Araghchi says he will discuss tackling common challenges and threats with Putin.
At least 22 people killed in Damascus after shooting and suicide bombing at a church. Authorities blame a member of the Islamic State group for the attack, the first of its kind in the Syrian capital since ouster of the Bashar al-Assad regime.
Fire crews battled a large wildfire on Greek island of Chios. Officials evacuate 16 settlements as strong winds further spread flames and thick smoke.
Oil prices soared to their highest since January after the U.S. joined Israel in striking Iran's nuclear sites, igniting fears of a supply disruption. Brent crude hit over $81 before easing.
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days.
A major flashpoint is unfolding in the Gulf.
Iran is reportedly threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that is a vital oil shipping route after the U.S. bombed 3 of its key nuclear sites.
Well, the Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman. At its narrowest, the maritime passage is just 33 kilometers wide, yet it handles roughly 21 million barrels of oil per day, or 21% of global oil trade. Now, it also transports 1/3 of the world's liquefied natural gas.
Now, even a partial closure can disrupt global supplies and send prices soaring. The strait is critical for energy exports from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq, and others.
Now for India, 2 million barrels of daily oil import passes through here. But India's Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, has said that India has enough diversified resources to absorb the shock. Energy markets are already reacting, with analysts warning that oil could jump to $80 a barrel.
The government under the Honorable Prime Minister has been consistently and periodically reviewing the situation, including the possibility of the closure of the Straits of Hormuz.
Now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called Iran's threat economic suicide, warning Tehran against taking what he called another terrible mistake. And tensions are high, and the world is watching the Strait of Hormuz closely.
And as we know, this is a major flashpoint in the unfolding conflict in the Gulf, where we have Iran, which is reportedly threatening to now close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it's a major development as it's a vital oil shipping route. And this is after the U.S. bombed 3 of its key nuclear sites, which include Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz.
Now, the Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway, which is between Iran and Oman, and it is the narrowest. The maritime passage is just 33 kilometers wide, yet it handles roughly 21 million barrels of oil per day. Now, that is about 21% of global oil trade, and it also transports 1/3 of the world's liquefied natural gas.
Right, and it's important to note here that even a partial closure could disrupt global supplies and send prices soaring. The strait is critical for energy exports from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq, and others.
Now, interestingly for India, the 2 million barrels of daily oil imports pass through here. But India's Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, has stated that India has enough diversified sources to absorb the shock. And, well, somehow energy markets are still already reacting, with analysts who are warning oil can jump to $80 a barrel.
And that being said, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called Iran's threat an economic suicide, warning that Tehran, if it chooses to go in that direction, it could be taking what he called making another terrible mistake.
Now, for more on this, we're now being joined by John Rossomando, who is joining us live from Washington, D.C. He is a security analyst and a geostrategist. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. All right, let's get into the story that we have been talking about just now. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called on China to encourage Iran not to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. He's also added that a move to close the strait would be a massive escalation that would merit a response from U.S. and others. I'm interested to know, who are these other parties that involved that Marco Rubio is talking about?
Well, you're talking about the countries like the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, that border the Persian Gulf. If Iran were to shut off the Strait of Hormuz, it could also have a severe economic impact on China that is heavily dependent on Iranian oil for its economic vitality.
Right. So, and we know that while the White House insists that the attacks were not about regime change, Trump is openly questioning why regime change wouldn't be on the table. And he said in a social media post, and I'm quoting him here, that if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, then why wouldn't there be a regime change? Now, we know that the officials and his administration has already said that that is not the case. Now, how do you interpret these mixed signals that we're getting from the Trump administration at the given point?
I think that what President Trump is saying, in contrast with maybe the Bush and Obama administrations that used American military power to topple governments, that the United States military is not going to be used to end the rule of the mullahs in Tehran. You've had ongoing protests against the mullahs for the past almost 10 years. I could foresee things such as President Trump helping the Iranian people to remain connected to the internet so that they can take matters into their own hands, or maybe the Israelis taking out the besieged militias that murder and oppress the Iranian people when they rise up. So I think that President Trump is, saying that it's up to the Iranian people, but I could conceive some sort of covert operation or something like that.
Right, and that being said, I'm curious to know, if at all they toppled the regime, do we still guarantee that Iran, after the U.S. strikes, would not want to go back to developing its nuclear ambition? Will the new generation, perhaps the new government, would want to not want to go back to it?
Well, let's put it this way. For the past several years, the people of Iran have been demonstrating in favor of restoring the monarchy. And Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has been the most important and most popular opposition figure. And he's been reportedly approached by China, America, and other nations about the possibility of forming a government in the event the regime falls.
Right, so we know that Iran's foreign minister is in Moscow right now and is trying to seek what he calls a serious and closer consultation with Putin, now saying that Russia and Iran have common enemies and shared threats. Now, do you see this as a sign of a deepening strategic axis between Tehran and Moscow? And now, having said that, could this shift the balance of power in the region at all?
Well, let's put it this way. There's already a very deep, ingrained connection between Moscow and Tehran. I mean, in the Ukrainian war, the Iranian Shahed drones have been used by the Russians against the Ukrainians. I mean, you have basically an axis of Iran, Russia, and China all working together. That I don't see anything else, but I think that if the people of Iran are able to rise up and able to take down this regime, it would be a real blow to both Moscow and Beijing.
Right, and I also want to get to the U.S. strikes. Now, we've been talking to a lot of experts, and there's a really interesting point that some of the experts have picked up. They say that they might have damaged the facilities, but then they haven't damaged knowledge, which is something that even Iranian FM has talked about. The knowledge has not been damaged. There are scientists who still want to work for it. So do you think, how successful do you think these strikes have been, especially getting U.S. involved in the whole conflict? How successful do you think this has been?
Well, I think that President Trump wants to keep a small footprint for the United States in Iran. I mean, and the Israelis have been going after every Iranian scientist of any repute to keep them from working with this regime.
Right, and that being said, we also know that US's involvement has triggered a lot of unrest back home, where a lot of Washingtons are not convinced with Donald Trump's justification of being complicit in the Israeli war, which is serving more of Israel's interests than America's. And with 40,000 troops still in the region, there's a lot at stake. Now, how do you think, is Trump going to justify this claim, or do you think he has already done it perhaps in a limited aspect in his address, or are we going to see more details emerging in the military briefing that's going to happen very soon? What's your assessment there?
Well, let's put it this way. There are a lot of Americans who are scared about, it will be another Iraq, another Libya, another Syria. Americans don't really understand the outside world. They don't understand that Iranian intelligence and Iranian assets were why Iraq turned out the way it turned out. They don't also understand that there's a widespread move inside Iran against the regime. President Trump can justify this based on the fact that Iran has been the #1 antagonist of the United States since 1979. It's basically been in a state of war with us, and there's no doubt that if Iran had a nuclear weapon, it would engage in extortion against us and against our allies.
Right, and that being said, I also want to bring in the whole point of diplomacy. Apparently, according to the Iranian foreign minister, they say that there might not be a chance for diplomacy right now. Somehow, Trump is also positive for that. He thinks that after the U.S. strikes, he can actually force Iran to come back to the table. We also have European leaders like the UK, France, and Germany trying to put them back on the table. Do you think that's a possibility as of now?
Well, I think diplomacy is dead. I mean, diplomacy's been dead for a while. I mean, last month, you had Iran telling Arab, leaders in the Gulf that they would not give up the enrichment program. That was President Trump's red line. And now that President Trump has struck, the Iranians are not interested in budging at all. They are talking about, maybe striking back at the U.S. somehow. That could possibly even include terror attacks on American soil.
But also, I really want to pick that up as well. You said that the red line was the uranium enrichment, but that was something that Iranians said, that we're not going to have nuclear weapons. That was the red line, and not uranium enrichment.
Well, let's put it this way. Why do you need to have centrifuges and uranium at 60% enrichment, 200 feet down? I mean, it's not like you need to have that for a civilian nuclear program. The only countries that have 60% or more enrichment are nuclear powers like the United States, India, France, Russia, or China.
And that being said, can there be any deal where there could be a deal which could limit uranium enrichment, or that deal is just done? Nobody really wants Iran to actually even develop uranium enrichment for civilian purposes, as they say.
Well, there's no reason to have civilian enrichment at this level. You don't need that for civilian or for electricity. You don't need that for civilian uses. The only reason that the IAEA said that you need this is for military purposes. And if anybody wants to argue with semantics, they don't either know the technology or they're lying.
Interesting. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. We appreciate you coming and giving your insights.
Thank you.
Now, with the U.S. officially entering the Israel-Iran conflict, Tehran has dramatically upped the ante.
Now, in an unprecedented move, the IRGC has said that it employed the Khyber missile in the 20th round of the retaliatory strikes on Israel.
Now, the Khyber missile is the latest generation of the Khorram Shah family. It is the heaviest payload of Iran's ballistic missile fleet with a 1,500-kilogram warhead and has a range of up to 2,000 kilometers. Now, it is designed to strike strategic targets in depth without the need for complex launchers, making it a crucial element in any preemptive strike or retaliatory response.
Now, it was among the 30 missiles Iran launched at Israel in the latest salvo, targeting multiple sites in Israel, including Ben Gurion Airport, a biological research center, military logistics hubs, and command and control centers.
Earlier today, the Israeli military confirmed that 2 waves of missiles were detected as air raid sirens blared across Tel Aviv and explosions rocked Jerusalem.
The Israeli Health Ministry has said that 86 injured people arrived at hospitals due to the latest round of Iranian missile strikes as well.
Now, in response, Israel has launched a new wave of airstrikes targeting military installations in western Iran, including the missile launchers used in the earlier attack. In a statement, the Israeli military said the Air Force carried out precision strikes, swiftly neutralizing the launch platform responsible for the attack on Israeli territory.
Now, from Operation Rising Lion to Operation Midnight Hammer, U.S. has entered the Israel-Iran war.
Now, the world watches as uncertainty looms in West Asia. Let's take a look at how the war unfolded in the last 10 days.
מה זה, אלוהים ישמור.
We have not attacked anyone, nor will we ever accept any aggression against us. We will never surrender to the aggression of any party. This is the logic and spirit of the Iranian nation.
point.
I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time. And I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum. Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise.
אתם זוכרים שמתחילת המבצע
From the beginning of the operation, I promised you that Iran's nuclear facilities would be destroyed one way or another. This promise has been fulfilled.
ההבטחה הזו קוימה.
There is no red line that they have not crossed. And the last one, and the most dangerous one, was happened only last night, when they crossed a very big red line by attacking nuclear facilities. I don't know how much room is left for diplomacy. We are now calculating the damages.
Well, it's now time for a quick short break.
But don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, a special flight carrying 285 Indian nationals from Mashhad in Iran landed in New Delhi, bringing the total number of Indians evacuated from Iran to 1,713.
We'll get you more on the other side. Stay tuned. You're watching WION The World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching WION The World is One, and this is World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar, and my colleague Diksha Bisla. Let's begin with the headlines.
A New York Times report quoting a U.S. official says that American military and intelligence officials have detected signs of possible retaliation. The report says Iran-backed groups are preparing to attack the U.S. bases in Iraq and possibly Syria.
The U.S. State Department issues worldwide caution for Americans, saying the conflict between Israel and Iran can put those traveling or living abroad at an increased security risk.
President Donald Trump says monumental damage was done to all nuclear sites in Iran, as shown by satellite images, and he claims the biggest damage took place for below the ground level.
President Trump hints at a need for regime change in Iran. While saying that regime change is not a politically correct term, Trump accused the current establishment of not making Iran great again.
B-2 stealth bombers returned to American soil after strikes on Iran's key nuclear facilities as part of Operation Midnight Hammer. The aircrafts landed near Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri.
A new video shows blasts in Isfahan, one of the three sites hit by U.S. strikes. Sound of explosion can be heard with smoke rising. But the exact time of the video could not be independently ascertained.
U.S. flag projected on the walls of the old city of Jerusalem the night after American strikes on Iranian nuclear sites.
Iran's permanent envoy at the UNSC slams Israel and U.S. for politically motivated attacks on Iran, says the non-proliferation treaty used as a pretext for unlawful action on the country.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is in Moscow to meet Putin and other Russian officials. Araghchi says he will discuss tackling common challenges and threats with Putin.
At least 22 people killed in Damascus after shooting and suicide bombing at a church. Authorities blame a member of the Islamic State group for the attack, the first of its kind in the Syrian capital since ouster of the Bashar al-Assad regime.
Fire crews battled a large wildfire on Greek island of Chios. Officials evacuate 16 settlements as strong winds further spread flames and a thick smoke.
Siren sound across central Israel as military detects new missile launched from Iran.
Asian markets slipped as investors grew cautious over possible Iranian retaliation to the U.S. strikes, raising concerns about geopolitical instability and global risks.
Carlos Alcaraz warms up for his Wimbledon title defense in perfect fashion. Rule number 2 beat Ezi Lehechka to win Queen's Club Championships.
Your 2025 champion, Carlos Alcaraz!
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days.
Operation Midnight Hammer, U.S. military's most tightly coordinated air mission in decades, launched precise missile strikes on Iran's hardened nuclear sites.
And using advanced stealth bombers and bunker-busting payloads, the operation was swift, silent, and strategic. Now here is how the mission unfolded.
In a stunning overnight maneuver, U.S. pulled off largest B-2 bomber strike on Iran with deception and fighter cover. Operation Midnight Hammer, a bold and precision strike targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Months in the making, the complex and high-risk mission involved over 125 aircraft and bombers deployed over the Pacific as a decoy. Before dawn broke in Iran, 8 KC-135 Strato tankers took off from Altus Air Force Base in Oklahoma towards V Air Force Base in Missouri, the ultimate home to the deadly B-2 Spirit stealth bomber fleet. Just hours later, 7 B-2 stealth bombers were already airborne. The silent giants were flying undetected across thousands of miles in West Asia. But not all planes headed east. To deceive Iran's defenses, a segment of the bomber fleet flew into the Pacific, creating a decoy trail, known only to a handful of military planners in Washington, D.C. In a surprise assault, 7 B-2 bombers under strict radio silence entered Iranian airspace. The lead bomber fired first, launching 2 massive bunker-buster bombs towards the Fordo facility at 6:10 a.m. local time. Within minutes, the remaining bombers released their payloads. In total, 14 bunker busters struck Fordo and Natanz. Moreover, at least 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles fired at Isfahan nuclear site from U.S. naval assets offshore. The mission was accomplished in a matter of just 25 minutes. Each stealth bomber is equipped with a 30,000-pound bunker busters. It is designated to penetrate up to 200 feet of earth or 60 feet of reinforced concrete. The only weapon that could have reached Fordo nuclear site that is buried deep in a mountainside. US says the initial battle damage assessment indicated all 3 sites sustained severe damage, but it is too soon to say whether Iran still retains some nuclear capability.
I know that battle damage is of great interest. Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
But Iran claims no significant damage at the nuclear sites. It has vowed to retaliate.
There is no red line that they have not crossed. And the last one, and the most dangerous one, happened only last night, when they crossed a very big red line by attacking nuclear facilities. I don't know how much room is left for diplomacy. We are now calculating the damages.
US has sent out a larger message to Iran: seek peace or face greater force.
As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war. But let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word.
The ball is now in Iran's court. Escalate or de-escalate, it faces grim choices for now. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And a special flight carrying 285 Indian nationals from Mashhad in Iran landed in New Delhi,
bringing the total number of Indians evacuated from Iran to 1,713.
According to India's Minister of State for External Affairs, the 285 Indian nationals were mainly from the Indian states of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Maharashtra. Further, 3 more evacuation flights from Iran have been scheduled over the next 2 to 3 days, and the ministry is in constant touch with the Indians residing in Israel as well.
Now, while the Indian government continues to ensure the safe repatriation of its nationals, it has also extended support to countries like Nepal and Sri Lanka in evacuating their citizens.
Now, following India's lead, several other nations, including Australia, Germany, Poland, Portugal, and the UAE, have also ramped up their own evacuation efforts.
Meanwhile, the United States has begun evacuation flights from Israel. In a post on X, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee announced that the U.S. government was offering assistance to American citizens and permanent U.S. residents living in Israel or the West Bank.
Now, similarly, France has also evacuated 160 French nationals from Israel. It has also announced that it would deploy military aircraft to aid evacuation efforts. France has some 250,000 of its citizens in Israel.
The United Nations has warned against yet another cycle of destruction following the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities.
While at the UN Security Council emergency meeting, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres once again called for de-escalation.
We must act immediately and decisively to halt the fighting and return to serious, sustained negotiations on the Iran nuclear program.
The Iranian envoy to the United Nations, Amir Sayed Iravani, condemned the United States and Israel's acts of aggression on Iran. Now, he's also dismissed the offer of diplomacy on nuclear talks as a, quote, policy to mislead the international community.
Confirming that
nature and the scale of Iran's proportionate response will be decided by its armed forces. Throughout history, the resilient and united Iranian nation has withstood deeper wounded and faced more vicious enemies, and this time too. It will show its dignity, strength, and greatness to the world.
Now, Israel's envoy to the UN, Danny Danon, said that U.S. and Israel do not deserve any condemnation, but appreciation and gratitude for making the world a safer place.
Those who now fake concern and cry escalation, we say, this is what the last line of defense looks like, when every other line has failed. Make no mistake, the cost of inaction would have been catastrophic. A nuclear Iran would have been a death sentence just as much for you as it would have been for us.
Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Dorothy Shea, strongly condemned the U.S. strikes on Iran at the UNSC meeting.
This evening, U.S. military strikes targeted nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, with the aim of dismantling Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and stopping the nuclear threat posed by the world's foremost state sponsor of terror. This operation sought to eliminate a long-standing but rapidly escalating source of global insecurity.
Go ahead. Now, amid all this, the head of the UN nuclear watchdog, Rafael Grossi, urged Israel and Iran to cease hostilities to allow for inspectors to carry out their work in Iran.
We have a window of opportunity to return to dialogue and diplomacy. If that window closes, violence and destruction could reach unthinkable levels, and the global non-proliferation regime, as we know it, could crumble and fall.
Well, it was not immediately clear when the Council could vote on the draft resolution. Russia, China and Pakistan have asked Council members to share their comments by Monday evening. A resolution needs at least 9 votes in favour and no vetoes by the US, France, Britain, Russia or China to pass.
And in response to the Trump administration strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, anti-war demonstrations have launched protests across the United States, including demonstrations outside the White House and in New York City.
These were the scenes as protesters gathered outside the White House to demonstrate against the US's full-fledged entry into the Israel-Iran war. Protesters chanted anti-Trump slogans and called on the Trump administration to stay out of the region. Now, similar scenes unfolded in New York City, where hundreds of protesters chanted "No war in Iran" as they marched through New York to voice their opposition to the US bombing of Iran's 3 nuclear facilities.
While many at the demonstration criticized the U.S.-Israel ties, many expressed concern over the West Asia conflict escalating into a global war. Now, a recent YouGov poll found that among all respondents, only 16% supported the U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict, while 60% opposed U.S. involvement.
Iranians have their own corrupt rulers to deal with. They don't need our corrupt rulers dropping bombs on them. And just as the Iranian people are not the same as the Iranian government, I hope the world knows that the American people are not the same as this government.
Already, Israel has killed hundreds of Iranians and injured thousands more, and we see that the fighting is now escalating more and more. We're here to say that that's enough, and it's time for the bombing to end.
In central Paris, groups of protesters of Iranian origin held a demonstration calling for an end to the war. Now, protesters condemned US joining Israel by striking key Iranian nuclear sites overnight, the biggest Western military action against the Islamic Republic since its 1979 revolution.
Et des enfants. Alors que pendant ce temps-là, le régime d'Israël continue massivement. Des États-Unis et de leurs alliés. Notre lutte s'attaque.
Investors are betting on Israeli stocks after the US struck key nuclear facilities in Iran.
Now, Israeli market surged to record highs on Sunday following the announcement by Donald Trump.
Now, the Tel Aviv 125 index rose 1.8%, extending weekly gains to nearly 8%. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange rallied over 5% intraday. Now, markets interpreted the coordinated attacks as a move to significantly degrade Iran's nuclear capabilities, improving Israel's security environment and boosting investor sentiment. Bond prices rose up to 0.2% and the shekel appreciated to 3.48 per US dollar, gaining 1% this month.
These strikes mark a dramatic turning point. Israel began its offensive by targeting Iran's ballistic missile factories and nuclear infrastructure. U.S. President Donald Trump later announced his forces had hit Iran's key nuclear sites with bunker-busting bombs. Tehran has been responding with a volley of missiles, hitting cities like Tel Aviv and Beersheba. Now, regional media reported that the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange itself was targeted and sustained significant damage. Now, despite this, markets continue to rally, driven by expectations of reduced Iranian threat and potential new strategic alignments in the region.
Now, beyond Israel, the market impact rippled across the Gulf. Kuwait's premier market index slipped 0.4%, while Oman's stock index dropped 0.2%. Now, this comes as investors weighed the risk of further escalation. A key concern remains that Iran's potential move to block the Strait of Hormuz, which handles nearly 25% of global oil shipments. Now, safe haven demand has risen, with investors shifting to government bonds and other low-risk assets. Economists warn that the surge in Israeli equities may already be pricing in expected gains. However, strategic investors are eyeing long-term opportunities, particularly if US-Saudi-Israel ties deepen in the aftermath.
All right, well, Carlos Alcaraz is in red-hot form to complete a hat-trick of titles at Wimbledon.
The world number 2 warmed up for the grass court Grand Slam in the perfect style, while the Spaniard battled past Izzy Lehechka to win the Queen's Club Championships.
Now, Alcaraz was in his 5th successive final following his title successes in Rome and French Open. Lehechka was bidding to become the first Czech to win the Queen's title since 1990. It was Alcaraz who broke first to take the opening set in 45 minutes.
The Czech continued to go toe-to-toe with the 5-time Grand Slam champion and edged the second set in a tiebreaker. Alcaraz raised his level and raced to a 4-1 lead on a breezy and Murray Arena in the decider. The top seed did not face a single break point in the match and rained down 18 aces to complete a 7-5, 6-7, 6-2 win.
Alcaraz now has extended his winning streak to 18 matches, which is the longest in his career. This 4th grass court title means that Serbia's Novak Djokovic is the only active player to have more titles on the surface than Alcaraz.
I cannot say no, but you know, we just play 2 tournaments per year on grass. But yeah, just feeling great. I don't think it's my favorite surface. I think it's clay right now. But I feel at home every time that I'm playing on grass. So I think it's a great feeling.
Giorgio Armani's admiration for other cultures and global aesthetic was on full display at his latest Emporio Armani show.
But the designer himself was notably absent. The 90-year-old designer skipped the customary bow at the Emporio Armani menswear preview for Spring-Summer 2026 during Milan Fashion Week as he recovered at home. His fashion house confirmed his convalescence in advance, but did not provide details about his condition.
Now, despite his absence, Armani was deeply involved in shaping the collection, working closely with Leo Dell'Orco, his longtime menswear director, who took the final bow. Normally, Armani would have posed with the models at the end of the show. Now, this is another signature moment that went missing.
The Emporio Armani collection carried a free-spirited bohemian air, a vision for the youthful adventurer who balances comfort with style, ornament with utility. Models sported braids or silver beads in their hair and layered accessories which included beaded necklaces, charms, tassels, and fringes.
Now, jackets range from softly tailored with sweeping scarf collars, ideal for wind and sun protection, to intricately detailed styles with feather-light touches or loose weaves.
And natural fabrics like crepe and linen contrasted with silky prints inspired by Moroccan mosaics. Now, trousers varied from gently pleated to dramatically ballooned, paired with long embroidered tunics. The show was described as a moment of introspection and identity, not to pause in contemplation, but to channel new energy into moving forward while conscious of one's origin. And now let's take a look at how the Hollywood movies are performing at the box office.
The highly anticipated horror sequel, 28 years later, has made a strong impact at the global box office. The movie has grossed $60 million worldwide. The film sees director Danny Boyle and screenwriter Alex Garland return to their chilling post-apocalyptic universe, proving the enduring appeal of the franchise.
Pixar's latest animated feature, Elio, has struggled to find its footing at the global box office, notching a modest $35 million worldwide since its release on June 20th, 2025. The science fiction adventure, which follows a boy mistakenly identified as Earth's ambassador to the universe, marks a challenging opening for the acclaimed animation studio, despite positive reviews.
The live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon has proven to be
Disney's live-action reimagining of Lilo and Stitch continues to be a global phenomenon, with its worldwide tally reaching an impressive $910.3 million. The heartwarming tale of a Hawaiian girl and her extraterrestrial pet has resonated with new and old fans alike. The movie has maintained strong box office performance since its release on 23rd of May 2025. And with that, we call a wrap to this edition of World DNA.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One with me, Diksha Bisla. Let's start this bulletin by quickly taking a look at the headlines. Iran threatens US bases and allies in West Asia. Advisor to Supreme Leader Khamenei says that bases used by US forces could be attacked in retaliation for American strikes on Iran. President Donald Trump says monumental damage was done to all nuclear sites in Iran. As shown by satellite images, he claims the biggest damage took place far below ground level. Ukraine says Russian drones launched a massive attack on Kiev. At least 4 people have been reportedly injured. Israel to allow outbound flights from today restricted to 50 passengers per plane. Over 1,000 Israelis and foreigners expected to leave today. At least 22 people killed in Damascus after shooting and suicide bombing at a church. Authorities blame a member of the Islamic State group for the attack, the first of its kind in the Syrian capital since the ouster of Bashar al-Assad's regime. Fire breaks out in Mumbai's Goregaon Film City. Blaze began at a set of a TV show. Live fire brigade vehicles responded promptly and no injuries have been reported.
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days.
US President Donald Trump claims that US strikes have obliterated Iran's nuclear sites. Iran, however, has claimed that damage was not irreversible. Now, Tehran also claims that it moved its 400 kg stockpile of enriched uranium to another location shortly before the strikes. Now, more than 24 hours after these strikes, President Donald Trump doubled down on his claims. He claimed that monumental damage was done to all nuclear sites in Iran, as shown by satellite images. Now, he claimed that the biggest damage took place far below the ground level. US B-2 stealth bombers and cruise missiles struck Iran's 3 most important nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan. New satellite images show the extent of external damages to these sites. The most heavily hit was Fordo. The site has been deliberately designed to withstand aerial attacks. Now, as per reports, its main centrifuge hall lie buried up to half a mile inside a mountain. Its above-ground facility at Natanz, Iran's largest enrichment site, had already been damaged by extensive Israeli strikes. Reports say that US dropped 12 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator bunker-busting bomb at this site. Now, Iran has claimed that there was no major damage at the site. Satellite images show what impact looked like what was made by the bunker busters on the ground. But since most of the facility is underground, the exact assessment of destruction is impossible. Now, it is believed that much of Iran's mostly highly enriched uranium was stored at the Nuclear Research and Production Center near the city of Isfahan. International inspectors verified the fuel was there a fortnight ago, but satellite imagery suggests that Iran may have moved it in recent days. The US did not use bunker busters on Isfahan, which is thought to be mostly above ground, and instead attacked with cruise missiles. Now, the strikes are thought to have damaged 6 additional buildings, including a fuel rod production facility. The above-ground facilities at Natanz, Iran's largest enrichment site, had already been damaged by extensive Israeli strikes. Now, Natanz also houses an underground centrifuge hole thought to have been the target of the 2 U.S. bunker buster bombs. The site was also targeted by Tomahawk missiles. Now, according to International Atomic Energy Agency, the impact may have knocked out power, potentially damaging centrifuges by causing them to spin out of control. A fuller picture of overall damage may emerge in the coming days, with experts urging caution about attaching too much credibility to both the US president's claims of obliteration or Iran's claim of superficial damage. A major flashpoint is unfolding in the Gulf. Iran is reportedly threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, which is a vital oil shipping route, after the US bombed 3 of its key nuclear sites. Now, the Strait of Hormuz